All good? All right, the property prequel, be in the know before you buy. Crossy, how are you?
Shrams, good mate. You?
Yeah, good. It's mate, it's good to be back chatting. What about last week's chat? Wasn't that a ripper?
It was good. What a nice couple. They're doing some great things out in there in the property world and building world and obviously design world with Lisa. But I'd never met them before. Had heard about a couple of things. Obviously, we saw their transaction down our end of the coast, and really good people, hey?
Mate, unreal, and really good story as well. We really like to highlight some people, especially in the community, who are doing great things with property, who they're usually the ones who have the key takeaways because they're in the trenches as we speak, you know, doing their thing, and both different backgrounds. One's more from the admin and style design side of things, and she gave some absolute ripping tips with interior design and whatnot, which was epic. Something me and you aren't really qualified to talk about.
Hell no.
And then obviously Roy from Custom Built Builders, you know, giving us an insight into from a building perspective, but also from their personal project as well. Unreal. So many key takeaways. So if you haven't heard that one, flick back to last week. It's been unreal, and we really appreciate all the feedback we're getting. If there is any topics you want us to cover, me and the Crossman will cover it. And one that's super topical right now, we love to talk about the topical commentary, mate. Interesting one. This was all in the newspapers and whatnot as well. I've been keeping a really close eye on it. Obviously, chatting to a builder last week as well, mate. We're going to chat today around the price disparity. Is that the right word? I guess around like your renovators and knockdowns and things like that versus brand new homes. It's an interesting gap at the moment, hey?
Mate, it is. And I think we've had a bit of a theme and a flavour of our podcast. We're only young as a podcast, as you know, but over the 16 or 17 eps I think that we might be in now, we have chatted a bit about the building and development game with a few different guests, but I thought wouldn't be bad to chat around today, given what we saw a few weeks ago in the news with Metricon, Australia's biggest builder. And as you know, mate, I used to do a bit of work for Metricon with their property investment sort of seminars and webinars and whatnot. And really sad to see, obviously, their founder, Mario Bison, pass away. And then off the back of that, queries around their financial position and how much trouble that they may or may not be in. They've obviously come out and dispelled any of that, which again remains to be seen. It could be a company line or it could be true. You know, they're a fantastic business and you can only treat them on face value. But what it does highlight is the dramas in the building space at the moment, both from a skilled labour shortage point of view, but what we want to talk about today is those material costs that are driving things up dramatically and making things unfeasible for a lot of builders and home buyers. And we've noticed it, haven't we, on the ground from a local residential point of view. And this is what I wanted to ask you, Shrams, was at the moment, the market has, I would say, cooled somewhat, given that we had this period of 6 weeks into an election campaign. The election's been run and won now, as we know, but still people sitting on the sidelines. But seeing that, as you said, that bit of the disparity between what prices are being achieved for a fully renovated new property or a newly built property as opposed to, say, an original property that does need a full renovation. And, mate, I wanted to ask you what you're seeing on the ground at a local level around numbers through opens, how those prices are holding up, and just some feedback that we can pass on to our listeners.
Yeah, really good question, Crossy. I guess the big thing is the gap. I always sense and keep an eye on the gap between an entry-level knockdown, whether that's a renovator, prices of that caliber, to a brand new home in the same suburb. So you need to get micro sometimes with prices. It's not enough to say, oh, what's the prices doing in X suburb? You need to think, okay, within that suburb, there's all different streets, which are different price points. So you need to go micro in there, but then micro again, what's a renovator versus a new build? Different markets, not the same market.
Yep.
What I'm noticing is the gap between the two is getting wider, I feel. Reason being, obviously, cost of materials is through the roof. Really hard to get a tradie.
Yeah.
Builders, all those sorts of things. The economic around interest rates. So there's a lot of things where people can't borrow against to do big renovations anymore. So probably 12, 24 months ago, renovators, knockdowns, flying off the shelf. Money was cheap. Tradies, that whole boom, surplus of cash as well from COVID. Let's put it towards a reno.
Tradies readily available.
All of a sudden, that's all changed. It's pretty much flipped on a 180. Now, what I'm noticing is with the pullback, I'm still seeing homes that are finished to a good quality standard, still achieving really good prices. And on the ground, I remember there was one on the southern Gold Coast, record price. So it's just showing that if you have got a finished product, that's still achieving high volume because the demand is still there for that segment. Probably not for the renovator, knockdown type property at the moment.
Okay, so mate, can I ask you, you go to open for inspections and auctions all the time in your business. What are you seeing at auctions now? So let's say auctions of newly built or totally renovated properties, in respect to rather number of registered bidders at those, as opposed to say an auction of a complete renovator that needs a total overhaul. What are you seeing the difference is in those spaces?
Yeah, well, I mean, really on-ground feedback. I've been to 2 this week, and both of those were beautiful homes, like really, really nice homes, family, 4-5 bed plus pool, 3 living areas, that sort of builds. Mate, probably 6 to 8 registered with active bidding from all of them.
Yep.
Above, even the 2 mil, 3 mil sort of mark. So money's out there, but the stock for a finished home is getting less.
Yep.
So again, 101, supply versus demand, right? Yep. If supply for a beautiful finished home, and we heard it on a previous podcast with Troy Dowker talking around buy for lifestyle, like premium buyers buy for lifestyle, no matter what the market's doing.
Correct.
Whether it's going up, down, left, right, what interest rates are doing. There's buyers out there who are buying for lifestyle. And if there's no finished lifestyle homes and one pops up, you're going to know that all of them are fighting for that property. So that hence why those are really doing well, because some of the buyers who might have thought, okay, I'll get a good renovator, I'll dump a lot of work into it. It's just not feasible at the moment, is it? Because land value is so high, but then you're taking the material costs. It's probably not as feasible as it once was. So that's what I'm really noticing on the ground.
Let's talk about that sale. It's very close to my house, so I was quite excited by it. So Katrina Walsh from Harcourts Coastal, one of the best agents on the Gold Coast, I think we both agree. She ran a ripping campaign for that particular property. Onyx was the name of the house, sold private auction for $3.6 million. I went through the first open home there. It was like a nightclub, like what you spoke about. About an hour later, there was another home open for inspection not too far from my place. I thought I'd have a look, complete original. There was only one other person there with myself.
Interesting.
And I just thought, to your point, and you're 100% spot on, that type of property that I went to second, the complete renovator, it would have flown off the shelf 3, 4, 5 months ago. Absolutely flown off the shelf, and there was no one there. And I thought to myself, there's got to be an opportunity in this. What's the lesson, or what's the takeaway out of this? And you're better to comment on it than me. But for me, I went, well, if I'm in a position where you could actually, if you owned a property that was brand new or newly renovated, you could sell at a premium, and you could actually buy under value for a renovator, provided that you're actually happy to live in it for some time, given that you can't get a tradie at the moment, I think there's money to be made.
Mate, I was just going to, as you were saying that, what's the opportunity cost?
Correct.
So I'm advising people and chatting to people, exact same scenario where they actually want to sell a place to buy a project. What I'm saying is, look, if you're willing to wear the cost of maybe months or maybe even a year of just staying in it for a bit, you can get your plans done up, come up with a solution on what you want to do. But the quick flip, is probably maybe not the best timing right now, just because, again, tradies and all those sorts of things come into it. So a key takeaway for buyers is, what is the opportunity cost of getting something original versus, getting something finished? And if you're in that boat now and you want to do a project, maybe you got to sort of think, okay, what is the opportunity cost? I could buy it where there's less buyers competing for this original stock because materials are high, tradies are hard to get. interest rates are high, people can't borrow to do the renos. If I'm the only buyer in isolation, I can secure that and then wear the opportunity cost to live in it for a bit and just chill. When as we know, markets are cyclical, it'll tick up again for original stuff, and then you do the work. You could be better, coming off better. You're exactly right. So it's really interesting to see that price difference from original versus new builds at the moment. It's really widened the gap.
None of us have got a crystal ball, but what are your thoughts moving forward? How long do you think this disparity or this gap might last? Obviously now as I said, we're post the election. There is still talk interest rates will go up, 3 or 4 or 5 more times, which does make people nervous. But at some point, if we look back historically post-elections, there is a point at which people get back to business. People go, righto, it's not as bad as we thought, even though, as we know, if it's a change in government or a re-election of the same government, it generally doesn't change too much, but people's perceive that we better sit on our hands for a while. But then at some point, they've got to go and act again. What do you see happening from a point of view of people coming back out of the hibernation and getting back to business in buying property?
Yeah, good question, because I always weigh it up, owner versus investors, two very different buyers, because one's always buying for lifestyle and one's probably buying for a commercial gain or a financial gain side of things. I really feel the investors, the astute ones, are sort of getting quite active at the moment. The lifestyle buyers are leaning towards more the finished products kind of home. So maybe if volume is still staying short with those types of things, there could even be a sense where people will be holding back buying as well, because a common one right now we can talk on, I know we're going to chat around this in future as well, is the old term FOOP. FOOP is the new word of the day, fear of overpaying. Yeah. Yeah. So it's a really interesting one when sentiment is down and then FOOP comes into people's minds as well. It could really stay stagnate for, a bit of time, I do believe. So, which isn't a bad thing as well, sometimes from an economy point of view and whatnot. So that's my sort of take. I think FOOP's playing into people's mind, especially those buyers who are looking for the finished stock. Yep. They're obviously conscious they don't want to overpay either for the right amount of stock. But at the end of the day, supply and demand supply versus demand. If supply is short, demand is high, prices are going to still keep going, which is the trend it's on at the moment. It's just people are a bit more conscious of FOOP. Yep.
So key takeaway, FOMO's gone. FOOP is the new flavour of the month. FOOP's replaced FOMO.
Fear of overpaying. It's an interesting buzzword at the moment, but it's funny how markets can shift like that, right? And it's a really, really big one on the ground I'm noticing is the FOOP, and then obviously that gap between original renovators weighing up the material costs, tradies costs, versus your finished home in a blue chip location. It's the key takeaway, I guess, for today, Crossy, is get on the ground and get to a few auctions. And if you are a buyer, and you want to start sensing what the market's doing, get out there, start noticing the trends with open homes, auction numbers, auction registrations and active bidding's probably a big one as well. Just because people are registered doesn't mean nothing. Who's actively bidding and above what number?
Yep. And then, as always, if you're unsure, there's help available. Reach out to SRAMs or whoever. If you're unsure, because as we always say, property, it's a big ticket item.
It is, yeah.
It's expensive in and it's expensive out, so you got to make sure you get it right.
Yep. It's a common one, Crossy. Everyone can buy property, but there's a difference between buying property and buying property well. So don't be a FOOP. I was shocked when I seen the FOOP word. A media outlet rang me and said, "Can you comment on FOOP?" It's like, I was just thinking of like bird shit or something. I was like, what's FOOP?
It's a good one. I usually get called a fool.
Yeah.
FOOP. But anyway, that's a good one.
And mate, what's a key takeaway for buyers for this week, given the market?
Yeah, I just think do your numbers around, if you are sitting in a position where you might be able to capitalise on this particular situation right now that we've just spoken about today. If you're sitting in there and you've got a fully renovated house and you've been thinking about maybe making a change or trying to capitalise on what you can get in this really good market, start doing your numbers. What does that look like? Sell for this amount. This is my agent's commission I've got to pay. This is the price I could pay for an unrenovated house because I'm buying in isolation. By the time I pay stamp duty, it's going to owe me this. What's that look like? How much money's in my pocket? How much have I got left for renovations? Yeah, I just think it's a good time to actually visit some opportunities there that may be available that we haven't seen for a while.
I like it.
So,
mate, it's always full of wisdom, Nathan.
I try to be, mate. It's as I said to my wife, these are the things we talk about on the podcast, to which she's yet to listen to it. So, thanks for your support, Jennifer.
Love it. So, get amongst it, get on the ground, stay focused on what you want as well. That's probably a big one. And, just start noticing the trends. I think once you're aware of something and a trend that's happening, it's really good to do your own research, isn't it?
It is, mate. So get out there, get amongst it, do your numbers, look at the trends. And as I said before, there's advice, there's help available if you need it. So reach out.
Thanks, Crossy.
Good on you, mate.